Welcome to the Crack House Chronicles, your favorite true crime podcast. I am Donnie, and with me is a man that wants everyone to know that the plural of beer is beer, which is very convenient when you're explaining to your wife why you're coming home late from work.
Yeah, that's right. Got to have a beer or 12.
Beer 3 or 4.
A few brewskis, man.
Yeah.
Those brewskis.
I'm having a beer. Is same thing as I'm having several beers.
If you can only have one, you get like a 40 ounce.
Yeah.
That's the way it works.
Yeah, big tall boy.
Yeah, tall boy.
That's right.
Just stack them on top of each other.
That's right. What's going on, dude?
Yeah, same old, man.
Same old.
Same old thing I say every week.
Same old.
Except for it is beautiful outside today.
Yeah, we're here in the Crack House recording an episode for you guys because we love you guys.
Oh, don't we, though?
We do.
They're our favorite kind of people.
Yeah. Yeah, because they listen to us and put up with us.
Yeah, they say nice things.
They do. They really do.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of that, you got anything nice that people have said about us?
Yeah, man, I got a whole page full of niceness.
Oh, gosh.
How about that?
Bring it on.
We got a few Apple Podcast Review 5 stars, and we want to give a shout out to RTYDH. That is somebody's name, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, they said that Donnie and Dale, I'm going to say Dale and Donnie because it's me, are the highlight of my work day. I clean homes, and I'm alone most of the day. We are a great company, and they keep, and we keep them laughing with each introduction. Keep up the good work.
Whoa.
How about that?
I love it.
Mm-hmm. Well, at least we ain't putting her to sleep, like we do something.
Yeah.
And then we got one for BNK324. Says, y'all, this is such a great podcast to listen to and super addicting. Kind of like crack, LOL, smiley face, haha. So, yeah, Donnie and Dale. And even with the seriousness, the humor is spot on. Love you guys. And it is signed Brandy. So thank you so much for those 5 stars, guys. That is really, really cool. 5 stars.
5 stars.
Yeah, you're supposed to be echoing my 5 star.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
5 star.
Also, we want to give a shout out to our friend Chris Waynick. And he left us a Facebook recommendation saying great podcast and content. Glad I ran into this one. And also gave us a 5-star Spotify review.
Oh.
So he doubled up, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, he doubled up and wanted a shout out, I guess. That's what he got.
That's right.
Thank
That's where
you,
you
Chris.
get it, man. That's where you get it.
Thank you, dude.
We really appreciate you.
Yep. We do.
Yeah, more than you know.
If anybody wants to be like those other folks and leave us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcast,
Yeah.
they certainly can. And write something in the box. Click that 5-star and write a recommendation in the box.
Yes. It'll let us know.
It shows up and it counts.
Otherwise, you're just a random floating in the space 5-star.
Just a star.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Among the other stars.
Yeah, but you put something with
If
it.
you want to be special, write something in the box.
That's right. And we will give you a shout out.
You'll be our special star.
Mm-hmm. If anybody wants to go over to the store page and get you a hoodie, get you some kind of merch.
Yeah, give me one too.
Mm-hmm. I need to buy me one. I keep saying it, but
we keep threatening, don't we?
yeah.
Yeah. I just keep wearing my old one.
All right, Dale, I also want to mention our Patreon account.
Okay.
If anybody wants to go over there and join up, sign up, and support the Crack House that way, we have 2 episodes on there now.
Yes, we do.
Mm-hmm.
How about that fanciness?
I like it.
I do too.
Mm-hmm.
They can also just go on and throw a few dollars in the gas can if they want. We don't want to join up for that.
Yeah, there's a link there on the website. There's also a Patreon link on the website.
Very nice. Very nice.
They can go and check all that out.
If you want to do a one-time PayPal gimmick, that is really cool. We appreciate you any way you want to help.
And that's at crackhousechronicles.com.
Ooh, ain't that fancy.
Very fancy.
Yeah, we know. And, we had another guy this week, Donnie. One of our friends we just kind of talking to, kind of a new guy at work. And we was just shooting the breeze and had on my shirt, and he asked, and so I gave him a sticker and told him we had a podcast. So a couple days later, he comes up and goes, man, been listening to your podcast. I was like, oh, yeah? He goes, yeah, I thought you guys were just blowing smoke up my ass. It's really good.
Yeah.
I was like, well, thank you. He goes, yeah. So he's now burning through them. So he's really up with us. So, and we really appreciate it.
We're just not bluffing. We're sure nothing.
We're just, we're not smoke blowers, are we?
No.
But anyway, you can share the show. We appreciate it. It seems like you guys share a little bit, and anybody who gets on there just stays on the bus and rides with us.
Yep. And I mean, we will toot our own horn because we are professional horn tooters.
You darn right. We're darn tooting.
Yeah. All right. Before people get to fussing about us.
We'll get a fussing. And speaking of buses, we got a bus show today.
Yeah, we got a bus one.
All righty. Let's roll it.
All right. Dale, we are going to California in this episode.
1976.
Yes. And we're going to Chowchilla, California.
That is a unique name.
Yeah, it is a nickname. And just a little bit of background on Chowchilla, because you pointed this out, and it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, very much.
Now, the name Chowchilla it comes from the indigenous American tribe of Chowchilla. I hope I'm spelling or saying that correctly.
You probably butchered it, but
yeah, but it's a Yokut tribe which once lived in that area, and the name translates as murderers.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, and is apparently a reference to the warlike nature of the Chowchilla tribe.
Yeah, so you just stay away from them.
Yeah, it's also known to be among the Yokuts. Their tribe was later associated with bravery, and Chowchilla Indians were inadvertently responsible for the first white men discovering Yosemite Valley, which occurred when they were pursued by a band of whites. In reference to the small tribe around Chowchilla, and until 2016, the town's high school mascot was Redskins.
But I wonder, is it really Chowchilla, and just everybody just says Chowchilla?
It could be.
It would make more sense.
Yeah,
with that background anyway.
Because the original American tribe was Chaushila. Chowchilla.
Yep, we came along and messed up everything.
Yeah. It could be pronounced Chowchilla.
Yeah. I think that would be more cool.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Very interesting.
Very nice, very nice.
Yep. All right. Our story starts with a man by the name of Frank Edward Ray.
Frank Ed Ray.
But he was also known as Ed.
Yeah.
Ed Ray. And he was born in La Grande, California on February the 26th of 1921. He was one of 8 kids to Frank and Marie Ray. And he moved to Chowchilla with his family and graduated from Chowchilla High School in 1940. In the early 1950s, after working on a farm of growing corn and raising cows, he'd purchased that. He became a bus driver.
Yeah, I think he wanted to do something besides that, even though it was very satisfying for him to be a farmer and to get out there and work and reap what he sowed. But I think he wanted to do a little more in the community.
Yeah, give back a little bit, I guess.
Yeah, and being with them kids really made his heart happy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's why he wanted to be a bus driver.
Yep. But like I said, our story is taking place in Chowchilla.
Yep.
Now, we're going to move up to Thursday, January the 15th of 1976, like you mentioned before. And, Dale, this was the bicentennial of the United States of America.
Mm-hmm.
200 years.
Yeah, and this is right after the 4th, so you know it was in full swing.
Yeah, it had been reported that back then everybody was celebrating the whole month.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I remember that, but not that well.
Yeah. But this was around 4 p.m. on Thursday, July 15th of 1976, and this was when school bus driver Ed Ray, he was driving 26 students, and they were from Dairyland Elementary School, and he was driving them home from a summer class trip to the Chowchilla Fairgrounds.
Yeah, I think it was like during summer school, but it was like right at the end of it.
Yeah, it was kind of like a little celebration type thing, I imagine.
Yeah.
But they went to the swimming pool.
Right. Had a big time.
Yeah. And they were on their way home, and this is when his bus was blocked in the road by a van.
Yeah, there was a van sitting in the road, and I think it had the hood up, so, you know.
Like they were having trouble or something?
Right, yeah. And kind of sitting, probably a little bit cockeyed or whatever, and, you know, Ed Ray being Ed Ray, he just, instead of just going on around it, he kind of pulled up and opened his window and asked them if they needed any help.
Yes.
And that was probably not the right thing to do.
And that's when he was confronted by 3 men with guns, and they were wearing nylon stockings covering their faces.
Yep.
And one of the men held a gun to Ray and forced him to get to the back of the bus, I guess, to sit in the seats.
Yeah, well, the one came up to the door and pointed the gun to the door and told him to open the door. And then once he opened the door, the other 2 guys came out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the first one had a handgun, the other one maybe had a sawed-off shotgun or maybe a rifle.
Yeah.
It's all different depending on which story you hear, but they were definitely armed men. And then when they came out, he knew he was in trouble, and then they made their way onto the bus and then made Ray get up and told him to go, and they held a gun on him while they would drive the bus from there on out. Yeah.
So there was one driving the bus and one driving the van.
And one holding the gun.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they drove the bus to a it was called the Berenda Slough, and it was like a dry riverbed. It was part of the Chowchilla River, but it was a dry riverbed. And this is where they left the bus.
Right.
And they had a second van there
Yep.
that was parked there waiting on them. And they had backed the bus up to the van, and they forced the kids to get out of the bus and jump from the bus to the van.
Yeah, therefore not leaving any kind of footprints on the ground.
Yes.
Yeah. So the only thing that would be there would be the extra tire prints.
Yeah. But they left this bus there. They covered it up with branches and bamboo and a bunch of different debris they could find.
Yeah, it's probably not easy to hide a bus with bamboo, but whatever.
Yeah. But now these two vans, they were sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? They were modified a little bit.
Oh, a lot.
Yeah. They had painted the windows black.
Yep.
And the insides of these vans, they were, I guess, reinforced with wood and paneling.
Yeah, they had some paneling and some padding and stuff in there to kind of make it, the way it looked to me is kind of trying to soundproof it a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was definitely no windows they couldn't see out or nothing like that.
Yeah.
And they had it made look like a box truck in the back, actually. So.
There was no ventilation or anything in the back of these vans, Dale.
No.
Mm-mm. And they drove these vans around for about 11 hours.
Yeah, I think as soon as they started to pull out, Ray was smart enough to look at his watch. And when they said that, I was like, dude, this guy's smart, because at least you can kind of figure out, by how long they're driving is how far they went.
Mm-hmm.
But, things take a little bit of a turn. But he was thinking the whole time. And, he was smart enough not to try to fight back because he's responsible for all these kids. So he's just trying to keep everything calm at this point.
I mean, can you imagine, you got all these kids in the back of these vans going down the road and it's hot in there.
No, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And these are not big vans. They're just like a regular cargo van, but with less space because all that stuff in back.
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking 27 people.
Yeah.
Not counting the bad guys.
And it'd been reported these kids, some of them were getting sick, throwing up.
Yeah, for motion sickness because they're just driving around.
Yeah. Like we said, for 11 hours, and
Yeah.
there were no bathroom breaks or anything. If you had
nothing.
If you had to go, you just went.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all you could do.
You just went.
Yeah. And I think it was one of the vans that I read somewhere that they managed to be able to see through a little hole up to the cab.
Yeah, one of the girls had said they saw through the crack and said up in the front and had the AC blasting. They was all up there drinking sodas and having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
While in the back, they were back there in the dark, sitting back there, and didn't even have a lot of motion sickness and, like you said, a lot of winting.
Yeah. But one thing we failed to mention, too, these kids, they were 26 kids, 19 girls and 7 boys, ranging in age from 5 to 14.
Yes.
So this is a big, wide range of kids.
Right. And then the 14-year-old fella, he wasn't even supposed to be on the bus,
Mm-mm.
It's kind of odd. He had gotten in trouble the night before with his mother, and that was her punishment. So he had to ride the bus that day.
He got caught with some beer or something, I think.
Yeah, that was what it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was his punishment, man.
He had to ride the bus. And then it was even said that he wasn't sure if that was the correct bus for him or not. He just asked Mr. Ed if he could ride, would he take him home? And he said, sure, I'll take you home.
Yes, that's what kind of guy Mr. Ed was.
Yes.
Well, not Mr. Ed the horse, but Ed Ray.
Mr. Ed Ray.
Yeah.
They call him Mr. Ed.
That's right.
Yeah, all the kids loved him.
Now, these kids were scared, and didn't know what was happening on these two vans, Dale.
No.
They rode around for 11 hours, I guess, making turns, going different directions.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the early morning of July 16th. They arrived at a quarry.
Yeah, they knew that there was some stuff was going on because they kind of went off road when they did. It just like bumps and going on. He's kicking them around everywhere. You can imagine the people flying around the back of that van.
Yeah.
Just the way they're just, probably just hauling ass down the road, just gravel road.
Yeah, this quarry was in Livermore, California. Now, if you, I guess, Google Map it today, you'll see that Livermore is only like 100 miles from Chowchilla.
Right.
So they rode around 11 hours to go 100 miles.
Right, and I think a lot of people said, they thought they did that to disorient the people in the back so they wouldn't know where they were. But my opinion is that they did this because they had to wait till it was middle of the night to take them where they're going to take them.
Yeah, it might have been twofold kind of thing.
Yeah, well, that's true, but because they had to wait till it was safe to go to where they're going.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I think that.
Yep. But when they got there to the quarry, they had the kids come off the bus one at a time.
Yeah, well, first thing they did is they opened up a door and took the driver out.
Yes.
And he said they brought me out, they took my pants and took my shoes.
Yeah.
And then they took him and then they run him down that ladder.
Yeah.
And then they would go back and get them all one at a time. So you know how terrifying that would be, because you don't know if they're taking them out and shooting them or what. I mean, I'm sure you don't hear no guns going off, but you don't know what they're doing.
You don't know what's happening.
Yeah, it could be clubbing them or anything. At this point, it's just terror, sitting in the dark.
But each kid was forced to give up some kind of piece of clothing, Dale.
Yeah. They took each off, got their name, got their age, and took a piece of clothing.
And they was writing their name down on a bag from Jack in the Box.
Yeah, because that's the way I planned this out.
Yeah, this is their plan.
They have some really good stuff in this plan and some really bad stuff in this plan.
Yeah. They were smart in one aspect and dumb in another.
Right.
But like I said, they forced these kids out of the van, taking their clothing, and then forced them to climb down a ladder.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this ladder went into a buried moving truck that they had buried underground.
Right. Yeah, at first they didn't know. It was just like a ladder in a hole, in the middle of a field. But, when they started climbing down the ladder, it went into like the ass end of a semi-truck. But I think it was more like a box truck or a moving truck. Like
moving truck kind of deal, yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't quite as big as a semi-trailer.
Yeah. But now, when they all got down in this moving truck, the box part of it, they noticed that they had stocked some small food, I think some peanut butter.
Some peanut butter, some chips, and some bread. And then they had several 5-gallon, those
totes with water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say it looks like a bag, but whatever you call it.
Yeah. Water totes.
So they actually did have food and water here. And then they had taken and cut holes in the wheel wells of this trailer to use as a makeshift bathroom.
Yeah.
It actually did have toilet paper too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if anybody went to the bathroom, they had to go in front of everybody else.
Yeah, sitting right there.
Yeah.
And after a while, it's not going to be good.
No, it's not going to be good, dude.
Because it's just a hole. It's not,
And I think they had a couple little pipes going in for ventilation, but it wasn't much, man.
They had some fans that were forcing the air in and air out. I think they were battery-operated fans, and then some what looked to me like a hose that would come off your dryer. Some of that to run air inside there underground. Mm-hmm. And once they got everybody inside the thing, they put a big piece of metal. Some people said it was a manhole cover, but I'm not sure if that's what it was or not. It was a sheet of metal. And
it was heavy, too.
Yeah, and then they put 2 100-pound industrial batteries on top of that, and then covered the whole thing in dirt.
Yeah.
So it was basically buried alive.
Yeah.
And it was up to, I think, 4 foot of dirt once they got it all buried and covered up.
Yeah.
So it's pretty scary.
Yeah, it was. They were down there for a while.
Right. And also, like, I don't know if we mentioned it, but they did have some mattresses and some old box springs down there to a little bit of comfort. So at least they would have somewhere soft to sit down or lay down. So, yeah, they did. They tried to do this a little bit better than they did them in the vans, but not much.
Yeah. And after a while, the kids, they would get to crying, and one would make another cry, and it was just back and forth. And I can't imagine the hysteria going on down there underground in this box truck.
No, heck no.
I can't imagine. But after a little while, Ed Ray, and there was a 14-year-old boy, his name was Michael Marshall.
Mm-hmm.
They got to where they were stacking some mattresses on top of each other.
Yeah, I think Michael actually said, look, we're either going to die in here or we're going to die getting out of here. So I'm not going to stay here wait for him to come back. We're going to try something. So I think him and Ray hatched the plan.
He was the boy that wasn't even supposed to be on the bus anyway.
Right, he was the one that got in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. So luckily he did for Ray, because he was a pretty big boy.
So him and Ray took time about trying to move this, I guess, lid off this box truck.
Yeah, and where I read was they had, like you said, they stacked the mattresses up to where they could get to the lid, and then they had busted one of the box springs so they have some lumber to use as a pry.
Try to wedge it open.
Right.
Yeah.
So try to wedge that lid open, because it being so hard, you can imagine if you got 2 100-pound batteries and then plus a piece of metal and all that dirt, and you're on a mattress pushing up, you're pushing up while you're pushing down,
But they said the lid or the roof of this box truck was starting to cave in.
Yeah.
With all the weight on it, because they're not made for that kind of stuff, man.
No, usually a semi truck or whatever, the roof, and there's not very much to it.
There's no support there at all.
No.
But Michael Marshall was able to move this lid
Yeah, it took them several hours to do it. It was not like he just climbed up there and moved it. They got up there and pushed and pushed and pushed, and it took it forever before they finally got it to moving a little bit, and said they would have to take breaks and sit down because it was so hot in there.
Yeah.
They would just get overheated and then just have to go sit down before they had a heat stroke or something, and drink some water and then go back at it.
But once he moved the lid and the batteries, he was able to dig through the dirt
Right.
to get to the top, to get out.
Yeah, it said there was a little wood, like a framing around the hole, and they wasn't sure what was outside of that. Plus, they didn't know if the kidnappers were just sitting there waiting for him to pop their head up either. But he said that he sent Michael to work his way through there, and once he got through there, seen it was just dirt, and so then he went to digging.
Yeah. So after about 16 hours, after they got down in this box truck, they were able to get out.
Yep.
And,
which was amazing.
Yeah, and Ed was able to lift all the kids up to get out.
Yeah, he was pushing them up to Michael, and Michael was pulling them out, and then they got Ed out last.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Yep. So then they got out, but they had no idea where the hell they were, because all they know, they'd been riding for 11 hours.
Yeah, they could be 11 hours from home.
You can go a long way in 11 hours.
Yeah, you could. And it was middle of the night too, dude.
Right.
Yeah. And they were just walking around trying to figure out where they were. And I think Michael actually ran off into the woods or different part in case
something happened. One of them would be free.
Because they got up top, they didn't know if them kidnappers were there or not, dude.
Right. Yep.
They didn't know.
Didn't have no idea.
But when they did get up there and realize that they were alone.
Mm-hmm.
And they were walking around this quarry where they were at, and they come up on a guard shack.
Right.
Because there were people there working.
Walking up, and the guard's like, "Oh shit!"
Yeah,
and he's like, then he realized who it was, because I mean, there was so much, talk going on around the town, with everybody coming in, the FBI coming in, and when you have this many people disappear at one time.
Well, it wasn't the town; it was the across the country.
Oh yeah,
this was a big deal.
Yeah, what I was going to say is that there was so much going on in the town, though. They had the phone company had to come in and try to add dozens of phone lines to this place just so the FBI could get in there and work, because everybody was making all these calls. Everything was locked down and jammed and shut down.
Families wondering where their kids were.
Couldn't make any calls. It was just blowing. Everybody was just blowing each other up.
Yeah, pretty much.
So it's crazy.
And the guard told them, said, the world is looking for you.
Mm-hmm.
But they were able to get the authorities out there to rescue these kids and Ed Ray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he put them, and then Greyhound sent a bus out for them to ride back on.
So they had to get back on another bus.
Yeah, I'd be like, I don't know if I want to ride another bus.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. At least it wasn't vans, I guess.
Yep. And then they got to digging into finding out what had happened to these kids and Ed Ray and
so
who was responsible.
Right, yeah, now they got them back, so now what? Now we got to find out who took them and why.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
So they ended up finding out that the quarry's owner's son, he was 24-year-old Frederick Newhall Woods IV. He came under suspicion pretty quick.
Yeah. As
one of the people who had a key to the quarry.
Right, because it had to be somebody who had access to the quarry.
To be able to get in.
To get it, because it was inside the gates,
And to have enough access to bury a moving truck there.
Right, to be there long enough without anybody knowing what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
It'd come to find out that Fred and two of his friends, they were brothers named James and Richard Schoenfeld.
Mm-hmm.
They were 24 and 22 years old, respectively.
Right.
And they had previously been convicted of motor vehicle theft, for which they had been sentenced.
Got probation.
Yeah, they got probation for that. And a warrant was executed on the estate of Woods' father, and there police recovered one of the guns used in the kidnapping, as well as a draft of a ransom note. But these three guys, they had fled when they realized that the
jig was up.
Yeah, because what had happened was they had left, and they went back to, I guess, wherever they came from, and they were trying to call in their ransom.
Yeah.
And like Dale said, they couldn't get through because all the phone lines were jammed up from families calling the police headquarters, FBI using the phone lines. They couldn't get through to be able to make their ransom demand.
Yeah, right. So they decided they would just take a nap and call the next day.
Yeah.
Because they had them, locked down. They're in the ground.
They wasn't going anywhere. So.
Right, we ain't going nowhere, so we got it good. We get some rest because they've been up, all that time preparing and driving and all that stuff. So they would just take naps, and then we'll call them tomorrow.
Yeah.
But hell, they'd already escaped before they ever called in the damn ransom.
Yeah, they got up the next morning and saw on the news that the family they had been rescued.
Right.
They got out and was rescued.
Okay.
So they left.
Mm-hmm.
They got out.
It's crazy.
But their intended ransom demand was $5 million.
Yep.
Which is equivalent to $23.8 million today.
Crazy. Well, you know, and then they said, you know, that the reason they did what they did was once they got them it was children, and they knew that they would pay.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, and part of this is pretty smart. I mean, their intentions were to never hurt anybody, and they was not going to hurt anybody, which is what they did. You know, and they thought everything was pretty good. But they knew if they picked him up on a school bus that the state would have to pay.
Yeah.
Because they were under the ward of the state with being on the bus. So that's why they got them while they were on the bus. And then they knew that California had a surplus in the budget, so $5 million wouldn't be nothing to them. So they figured they'd have more kids, which would be more money. So that's why they did what they did.
Yeah.
But the bad thing is, all these dudes are rich anyway, so it's just crazy to me why even do it in the first place. But why do people do what they do?
I mean, they weren't just rich, they were mega rich.
Yeah, especially Fred.
Yeah. Fred, he was the mastermind of all this, and when word got out that they had escaped, he fled to Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada.
He had a fake passport and everything.
Yeah.
What was it? Ralph Snyder.
Yeah.
Was his name.
Yeah. He even wrote one of his buddies who had a movie company or something, or wrote from movies and said you could turn this into a movie. He wrote him while he was in Canada.
Yeah. At least just give me some of the money off the box office or whatever. Then he signed it Ralph Snyder.
That's just so crazy.
I'm like, even if you got the letter, it'd be like, who in the hell was Ralph Snyder?
That is so crazy.
And anyway, yeah, it didn't take him long to run him down.
Yeah.
So you just follow the letters back. He's writing letters to everybody, dummy.
Yeah, now, Richard Schoenfeld, one of the brothers, he turned himself in voluntarily.
First, yeah. He said he went home and told his daddy what he had done. And actually, he was kind of more of a, just kind of hanging out with his brother. I don't think he was really part of the big plan. I think he just was along for the ride and got caught up into something really stupid.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he went and daddy got him a good lawyer.
Yeah.
Because he was a doctor, a podiatrist, I think.
Son of a podiatrist?
Yeah, so his dad got him a good lawyer, and then he went and turned himself in because he felt pretty bad about it.
Yeah.
You know, especially when it wasn't even his idea anyway.
But now, 2 weeks after Fred Woods left to Canada, he was captured.
Right.
And then James Schoenfeld, the brother of Richard who had turned himself in, he was captured earlier the same day in Menlo Park, California.
Yeah, he tried to get into Canada himself a couple times, but they wouldn't let him in. Said one time he was too anxious acting, so they didn't want to let him in. And then there was something else.
Something about some guns or something.
And then he had way too many guns.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there was another reason. I can't remember exactly what it is off the top of my head. But yeah, anyway, they wasn't letting him in. So then I think they knew there was a all points bulletin on him, and they called, got him locked up.
Yep. But now, James Schoenfeld later stated that despite coming from wealthy families, both he and Woods were deeply in debt. Well, they said they needed multiple victims to get multiple millions.
Right.
And we picked children because they were precious.
Right.
And like Dale said, the state would be willing to pay for ransom.
Yeah.
And they don't fight back.
They don't fight back, and they'll mind you, and they're very vulnerable.
Yeah. But now, once caught, all three perpetrators pled guilty to kidnapping and ransom and robbery.
Right.
But they refused to plead guilty to infliction of bodily harm as a conviction on that account in conjunction with the kidnapping. And that carried a mandatory sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole.
And I don't blame them. I wouldn't, I mean, like I said, they had no intentions of harming any of these kids.
They just wanted money.
They just wanted the money, and they was trying to get them to plead guilty to that. But they're like, no, we didn't harm anybody. Well, why would we do that? Because then that comes without the possibility of parole.
Yeah.
So anyway, they were trying to get them for that anyway, but they didn't.
They were tried on the bodily harm charge, found guilty, and given the mandatory sentence, but their convictions were overturned by an appellate court, which found that physical injury sustained by the kids, which was mostly cuts and bruises,
right,
didn't meet the standard for bodily harm under the law.
Yeah, I mean, they try to twist it to where, that counted. But, in my eyes, I'm thinking, well, they didn't take a bat and, they could have done a lot of bad stuff with all these kids. And that wasn't their intentions. And sure, the cuts and bruises happened, but, I don't know if it was enough to convict them on, infliction of bodily harm charge.
Yeah. But they were resentenced to life with the possibility of parole.
Correct. Now, nowadays, if it would be done now, it would be emotional stuff. It would probably be a lot worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm sure a lot of these kids just got a lot of problems.
Yeah. Now, Richard Schoenfeld, he was the youngest, and he was the one that pled guilty first. He turned himself in.
Yeah.
He was released in 2012. And then his brother James Schoenfeld, he was paroled on August the 7th of 2015.
So how long did he serve?
From 1976 to 2012.
Yeah, so these guys, so you remember Richard was only 22.
Mm-hmm.
So if he served, what'd you say, 36 years?
36 years,
he
yeah.
would have been almost 60 when he got out.
That is just crazy, man.
And then his brother was 2 years older and got out 3 years. So basically there was both right around 60, give or take, when they got out.
Now, in October of 2019, Fred Woods, the mastermind behind all this, was denied parole for the 19th time. And over the years, the reasons given for these denials have included a ton of stuff.
Well, the other two guys were pretty good prisoners, whatever you call that.
Model prisoners, I guess.
Yeah, and Woods not so much.
No, he continued the minimization of his crime. I mean, he didn't really have any remorse for it.
No.
And he had a lot of disciplinary infractions while in prison.
Possession of contraband, of pornography, and cell phones.
Yeah, he was even running some businesses while he was in prison.
Yeah. I mean, he even had a gold mine.
Yeah.
A gold mine, a car dealership, and it seemed like one other business he was running.
Yeah, there was one, I think he had the car dealership.
Oh, it was a Christmas tree farm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think the car dealership, he had an employee there get hurt on the job and was filing for workman's comp.
Well, I think one of the guys, and it may have been one of his main guys who was kind of helping run all his stuff. He had hurt his back or his shoulders or both or something, and he needed some surgery. And basically, Fred told him that wasn't his problem, so he wasn't going to help him out. So that's when he went and filed the workers' compensation, and then that led him right back to him. So he was doing this out from prison.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, that wasn't too good.
Now, in 2016, a workman's compensation lawsuit filed against Fred Woods also revealed that he'd been running several businesses, like we said, including this gold mine, a car dealership, and all this was from behind bars without notifying prison authorities as he was supposed to.
Now, like he's going to do that.
Now, he was the heir to two wealthy California families, the Newhalls and the Woodses.
Mm-hmm.
And he inherited a trust fund from his parents that was described in one court filing as being worth $100 million. And Woods' lawyer disputed that amount, and he is also married 3 times while in prison and has purchased a mansion which is about 30 minutes away from the prison.
So what in the hell would he want that with? Why would he want a mansion?
Yeah. He's doing all this while he's in prison.
Right.
Yeah.
He inherited this $100 million, but of course, his lawyer's going to say no, and it's nowhere near that. But that's just because he knows he's fixing to give it up.
Yep. Now we're moving ahead to March of 2022, and this was a panel of 2 commissioners. They recommended Fred Woods for parole, and the recommendation required the approval of the full parole board and the board's legal division and California's governor. And California Governor Gavin Newsom asked the parole board to reconsider his decision, but the decision was affirmed.
Right. I think at first it was recommended by just a couple folks.
Yeah.
And then they sent it to Gavin Newsom, and he could either pass it or send it back for a full board review.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what he did. So I guess that way it's not on him.
And on August the 17th of 2022, just this year, it was reported that Fred Woods' parole had been granted.
Yep.
And he was to be released from prison.
He's 70 years old.
Yeah. And it'd been reported they'd go up to him and ask him about this and about the emotional part of this to the kids. He said, yeah, I've heard.
Mm-hmm.
He had no remorse at all, dude.
No, he's just trying to get on with his life. But, these other people, I'm sure all this stuff, a lot of kids suffer from panic attacks and nightmares and, all kind of stuff,
Yeah.
Kidnappings and death. And, Can you imagine just being locked up in there?
I can't imagine, man. You didn't know what was going to happen to you.
No, nothing. Didn't have a clue. That's why I was saying, these guys thought they were doing, they knew they were doing some bad shit. Don't get me wrong. But, they were trying to do it as nice as way they could.
Just to
didn't
get the
want to
money.
hurt nobody. Nobody's going to get hurt. But they're not thinking about all the serious emotional and mental scars that Dirk Collins is causing all these people. And I'm sure a lot of that just got worse as they got older,
Mm-hmm.
And then some are a lot worse than others.
Yep. Now, just getting to some good news right here. Ed Ray, he received a California School Employees Association citation for outstanding community service. And he was also to take a trip to Disney World with the kids.
That was cool.
Yeah, they had a parade, and this celebrated all these kids' escape. And Ed was pretty much a hero.
Oh, yeah.
He was labeled a hero in all this, man.
Yeah, he had a park named after him.
Yeah.
February 26th is declared Ed Ray Day in Chowchilla.
That is so cool, man.
And still is till this day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There was a study found that the kidnapped kids suffered from panic attacks, nightmares involving kidnappings, and death, and personality changes, Dale. And many of these kids developed fears such as cars, the dark, the kitchen, mice, dogs, and even hippies.
Wow.
Yeah. And one shot a Japanese tourist with a BB gun when the tourist's car broke down in front of his house. And many of these kids continued to report symptoms of trauma at least 25 years after this kidnapping. And some of this stuff was substance abuse, depression.
Yeah, there was one of them that even said, he had got on meth and some other stuff and was really bad until he decided to change his life. And he went and talked to these dudes and somehow met them and told them he forgave them, shook their hands, and pretty much cured himself of all this.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. So, sorry about that. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Now, in 2016, the 25 surviving kidnapped kids, they settled a lawsuit that they had filed against their kidnappers. And the money they received was paid out of Fred Woods' trust fund.
Right.
And the exact settlement was never disclosed. And one survivor stated they had received enough to pay for some serious therapy, but not enough to buy a house. So that is just crazy, man.
It is.
Now, just a little bit of pop culture about this, Dale. There was a 2-hour made-for-TV movie about this event that aired on ABC on March the 1st of 1993, and it was titled, "They've Taken Our Children, the Chowchilla Kidnapping." And it starred Carl Malden as Ed Ray and Julie Harris as his wife.
Need to watch that.
Yeah. It's available on YouTube.
Okay.
And Chowchilla Kidnappings were also featured on episode 7 of season 2 of the program House of Horrors, Kidnapped, which airs on the American cable network, Investigative Discovery.
Yeah, ID channel. Bro.
Yeah. And the episode Buried Alive first aired on April 21st, 2015, and was told from the point of view of Michael Marshall.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, who at age 14 was the oldest, like we said, on the bus. Also in 2015, an episode of Inside Edition, they reunited the kidnapped women to tell their stories of the kidnappings. And the bus from the kidnappings, which is now stored in the Chowchilla farm warehouse, was also seen in this episode. Now, Ed Ray, he passed away on May 17th of 2012. And he was visited by many of the school kids who he had helped save that day.
Yeah,
they were kidnapped.
Yeah, in his last days, many of the school children had came to see him.
Yep.
Wow.
And like we said before, in 2015, the Sports and Leisure Park in Chowchilla was renamed the Ed Ray Park. Actually, the Edward Ray Park. And every February the 26th was declared Edward Ray Day in Chowchilla.
Right.
And just another little side note on Ed Ray, there was a song by Robert Goulet called Chowchilla Ray.
Yeah.
And it's available on SoundCloud.
Yeah, just Google it.
Yeah, it's pretty daggum 70s, but that's very cool. But anyway, that is the Chowchilla kidnappings. And at the time, I don't know if it still is or not, but it was the largest kidnapping in U.S. history.
Yeah, I think it still is.
Yeah. Pretty crazy, man.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
We had a story that had a pretty good ending.
Yeah, wasn't nobody killed.
We had a hero and a good ending.
Yeah.
Or a couple heroes, actually.
But it is a bad crime, no doubt about it.
Yeah, you have to give Michael Marshall his due.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was a big part of it.
Yeah, even though he wasn't supposed to be on the bus that day.
Right, so shout out Michael.
Yep. All right, Dale, we are going to get out of here, dude.
All right, let's roll, Don.
We want everyone to be safe, be careful, and always be aware of your surroundings.
Because the next episode could be about you.
This is the Crack House Chronicles.